Good girl, Fanny.
I'm Shelby Travers. I'm 24 years old and live a full independent life with my guide dog Francis by my side. I have a challenging career that I love as the Ottawa broadcast presenter for AMI TV.
I'm Shelby Travers. The quest for me to play video games has taken me to the vibrant city of Toronto. With a
But
population...
I wasn't always sure I'd make it to a life like this. This is my story. Welcome to my 10-year-old brain. It's been 10 years since my life changed dramatically. In the blink of an eye, I went from being a confident, healthy 14-year-old to someone who struggled to get through the day, not knowing if my life would end. This was the life of someone living with an arteriovenous malformation, a life-threatening entanglement of abnormal blood vessels in my brain. And this is the story of how saving my life changed my brain forever. In June of 2007, I was playing lacrosse, and I got a really bad concussion. I was cross-checked on the back of my neck into the boards. As most people know, like, you get a headache with a concussion. They kind of go hand in hand, and so I had very severe headaches, and those didn't go away. June went by, July went by, August went by, and I just had a headache every single day. That was definitely the first step in kind of realizing that, you know, something was really wrong, and we started looking at it. It came to a point I couldn't go to school anymore. We didn't know why. Like, we didn't know what was wrong with me, but just the pain that I was in. And that's just like, bottom line, like, I had such immense pain. I mean, the pain took me away from doing anything I wanted to do, right? Like, it was just so severe. And it was terrible. That's kind of just the simple way of putting it.
No, forward. Find the bench.
I want to tell this story because well, there's a few reasons, but I don't think brain injuries are talked about enough. I think they're starting to become a little bit trendy with sports medicine, and people are getting a lot of concussions, and people are like, okay, that means a brain injury. However, I think brain injuries are a very severe form of an invisible disability, and it's so debilitating. I mean, all I've ever wanted since it happened was just to be a normal, whatever my age is. Because at 15, I couldn't go to school full-time because I couldn't do that. At 16, I was having to take naps. I felt very different. I burn out really quickly. I can't go out to loud environments. I have dealt with like a lot of seizures, and I don't know what that means. Like, I still learn everything new about my brain injury every single day. It's not like my vision, which is that's how it is and that's how it's gonna stay and nothing's gonna change. I wanna heal in a bit of a way, and I wanna be able to accept myself more. That
How positive you're being.
my journey towards acceptance starts with talking about the past with my mom, Karen Hall, on her recent visit to Ottawa.
Beautiful day.
So, Mom, I think let's probably start at like square one, being diagnosed with an AVM. Can you tell me what it was like from your perspective having me diagnosed?
It was sheer shock at first. It was like a dream, a whirlwind, didn't want to accept it, was in denial, and yet wanted to take control and take care of things at the same time.
So when you heard about my AVM, you know, do you remember what the doctor said, like described it to us?
Yeah, I remember we were sitting in this crummy little office and two little chairs sitting side by side,
Yeah.
and the doctor in front of us, and he looked at his computer and just had this blank look on his face, and then turned squarely to us and explained that usually people that are diagnosed with this, they find out because in an autopsy. That usually, you know, a 20-year-old walking on down the sidewalk, and all of a sudden they drop dead.
Yeah.
Have we ever heard of that? And I kind of went, yes.
Yeah. And like, what a way of like explaining to, right, like a 14-year-old girl and a mother, like, you know, the diagnosis. It was definitely.
He was very direct and didn't have great bedside manner.
Yeah, exactly. Can you speak to some of the conversations you had with the doctors that I wasn't involved with?
I remember them just saying that there were different ways of treating this, but yours was so big and so complicated that there was only one way, and that you would have to have brain surgery.
When were you told about my like losing of sight, and when were you told like of the potential of like a brain injury, or were you?
So when the brain injury was never brought up, that wasn't a point, but we were told right away that you would lose your vision. As far as it being a life-threatening condition, I couldn't go there. I don't think any parent can. You're in denial. It was the blindness. The funny thing that actually caught me more than anything was like, well, of course you're not going to die. So we won't even talk about that. It was the vision. And, you know, you were such a strong athlete. You were an avid reader. You were a great student. That I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to be a huge shock and a huge paradigm shift for you.
And I think, like, for me, I always say, like, it wasn't even the diagnosis that was hard. It wasn't even anything like that of, I think, what people would expect. Obviously, the AVM was super difficult because of the pain. The pain was the really bad thing for me. But none of the other stuff, it was how I was treated in the world that really kind of shook me. You know, I lost my friends and I became very socially isolated. What was that like for you, kind of like seeing me, kind of go through those times when I didn't have the friends? I came from like being a very popular girl and a social girl to kind of like just holding in on myself.
Yeah, that was a horrid place to be as a mother. You know, the mama bear in me came out, and I felt like I needed to protect you through everything. And never really thought of myself as a helicopter parent, but I definitely became much more so.
Like, was there any sort of thing that stood out to you in my struggle, in what I was going through, whether it be like my headaches, whether it be my emotional state? Was there any sort of thing that you witnessed with me with that?
I just remember it being frustrating all the way around. It seemed like years of fighting. Fighting doctors, fighting you, because you were just so sad. So not knowing what was right as a parent to do. And so everything just seemed like work and a struggle.
So Dr. Bill Hamilton, Dr. Heron, and Heather are like three people that I find so integral in my recovery, so important in, I mean, one, saving my life, but like saving my life during, the AVM, saving my life to after, when I was really, really sad and dealing with who I was. What type of things really stood out with you, or do you remember anything with any of them that are like stories that really stick out to you?
I remember when you met Heather, and I was living far away from you, but I remember you sharing with me how Heather had her disability and how she was just open and very comfortable, and it was just very candid. Like, you know, I have blue eyes and I'm deaf. And, you know, it was just very common and not a big deal. And she seemed to understand you, and you really felt that you were supported and understood and listened by somebody that could actually relate, where, you know, so many people in your family couldn't relate. So that was an incredible thing for your healing. And Dr. Heron, you know, he was there from the very first diagnosis, and he came to see you in ICU. And we went years later to do follow-up at Children's Hospital. He said, come and visit. And so he was also so supportive, and he learned so much through it.
Yeah.
And you guys had a great bond. And Bill, with the neuropsych assessment,
Yeah.
just having, again, learning about your brain, learning about how you see things. And we learned so much more about the brain injury side with him, which really hadn't been addressed that much before.
So do you think that you noticed any difference in acceptance between my brain injury and my blindness? Because they've definitely been something that have been handled with me differently, communicated to me differently.
Franny, when she came in, your acceptance of your blindness, that everything is like, okay, this is who I am.
Then it's like, okay, screen readers,
and
that's
I liked
fine.
it.
Yeah, like everything just kind of been like, okay, like it's fine now.
But as far as the brain injury goes, I think you're still in a processing of that. You're still learning. And that could be lifelong. That's what I expect, is that it's going to be lifelong learning as things change in your life.
Talking with my mom about my diagnosis helps put things in perspective. This is a lifelong process, and I'm ready to take the next step. My 10-year-old brain will continue after the break when I meet with one of the doctors who was a big part in my diagnosis. I'm Shelby Travers, and this is my 10-year-old brain. To move forward, I have to go back. And that takes me to Vancouver, where my family was living when I got sick. In visiting the significant places and people of that time, I'm going to learn and hopefully gain acceptance. One of those people is Dr. Manraj Heron, an interventional radiologist. And one of those places is BC Children's Hospital.
BC Children's Hospital, a lot happened. From me understanding more about my diagnosis of an arteriovenous malformation to ultimately having my embolization and having, we'll call an induced stroke, to having brain surgery and having my life be saved, but my whole new reality changing.
It's so weird just to be in these hallways, because to the right, it's where the research MRI is. It's where I did a lot with Dr. Heron. I don't know, it's completely surreal to just be here, know that this is where my life has been saved. It's kind of funny that BC Children's Hospital is so much under construction because, obviously I've been under construction for the past 10 years. So down this hallway is a big place. This is where we end up going to the ICU. I was in ICU twice. The first time was after my embolization, when I ended up having to be put on life support because of the induced stroke. The second time was with brain surgery, and that ended up saving my life. Of course, everything's gone now, but it's still just so cool to be here. I'm so grateful of everything. It's amazing.
I was really crazy because actually at 14, I had to give permission. I had to sign the documents for the brain surgery and everything. My neurosurgeon said, she's gonna lose some of her sight. We don't know. We don't really know what's gonna happen, but you either have the choice of doing this surgery or I'm not helping you out at all. Which ultimately meant they knew that I would inevitably die if I didn't do something. When you're in that position of life or death, you're able to handle so many things that you never thought you'd be able to deal with, because our minds don't really let us go into those places. I don't think I genuinely ever felt like I could die or was going to, because like you can't let your brain get into that place. And that's why it's almost scarier, like now thinking about it, like now thinking like, oh my God, like what if that did happen? And
Dr. Heron splits his time between BC Children's Hospital and Vancouver General Hospital, where I'm meeting him today.
he performed many things for me, including cerebral angiograms, to finding out like, you know, really what my AVM looked like and how it was, to then my embolization, which, yeah, created a whole different story in itself. What is this room that we're in now?
So this is an angiography suite. So
Okay.
this is where we do interventional neuroradiology.
Yeah,
It's where we do the kind of angiograms like the one you had.
yeah,
It's a very specialized room that allows us to have equipment that looks at the brain from the front and from the side, or in
Yeah.
any angle that we want.
yeah.
And so it's where you had your procedure done.
So this is where I not only had the angiograms to kind of see the picturing of what was going on with my brain and the AVM, but also the embolization.
That's right.
So it was in this exact room.
That's exactly right.
This was the bed that I was in for the procedures when I was 14, 10 years ago.
That's right.
A little weird.
It is a little weird.
little weird. So
Yeah.
I was a little girl on this bed dealing with a lot of stuff.
An AVM is a tangle of blood vessels where arteries and veins are connected in a way they shouldn't be.
Yeah,
It's a problem that people are born with.
yeah,
Sometimes they don't even know about it. You can live your entire life and
Yeah.
not ever know.
yeah,
But you can have it and present as a problem as a baby or
Yeah.
as a teenager or into your adulthood. And the reason why you were here was for us to be able to do a procedure, an embolization, to allow for your surgery to be able to remove that whole thing. And so when we looked at your problem and we looked at where it was, it's something that was fixable, curable, but it would have come with a cost. And
Yeah.
that cost was going to be your vision,
Yeah.
right? And it was definitely going to affect part of your vision and the way
Yeah.
that you've been living with.
No, and that's really it. Is I'm very grateful, you know, that really it just was my vision, and of course some other brain complications that who even knows
That's
why
right.
or when that happened. But I mean, the fact that I could have these things happen in my brain and I can still, you know, I'm still here today. I'm still alive, and I think that's something that's pretty significant.
So just coming to you.
Dr. Heron takes me into the image reading room to look at my case.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what's on the screen right now?
Sure. So what we're looking at first is your MRI. This was done back in 2007.
Yeah.
And this was when you were having your headaches and
Right.
people were trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And what it shows is a problem in the left back part of your brain. And this is called the occipital lobe, and it's a vision center. And one of the things that is noticeable from this picture is that there's a lot of really windy stuff, right? And these are blood vessels,
Right.
and they're different sizes. And what this is, it's almost pathognomonic or characteristic for something called an arteriovenous malformation, which is a problem of blood vessels connected together in a way that they shouldn't be. But this was the reason why you were having your headaches.
Yeah. And what's the date on this one?
So this was December 10th, 2007. This was the day that your diagnosis was made.
Yeah,
And it probably was the marking the beginning of a journey,
for sure.
right, for a lot of different things that then followed.
And also like finishing a journey in a way, because I just remember how like frustrating it was, not just for me, but for my family, to like witness me in such severe pain, but not really like understand why. And yeah, we went through like everything from being diagnosed with abdominal migraines to I had one doctor tell me like I was just having bulimia and that's why, because I was losing so much weight because I wasn't eating because I was in so much pain. Yeah.
And it's great, you know, great from the perspective that it allowed for you to no longer have to worry about, is this something that I'm just making up? Or, you know,
Yeah.
and you're trying to convince people, no, this is real. This is something really wrong.
Yeah.
The next picture is the one that's also very important, and this is your angiogram. And the angiogram is an invasive picture. It's one where we put a tube into the groin artery,
Yeah.
And it's like a hollow piece of spaghetti
Yeah.
that we thread up into your brain arteries,
Yeah.
and we take a picture and we
Yeah.
put a dye in that circulation, and we watch it flow through the brain circulation.
Yeah.
And by doing it that way, what we get is a picture that shows us that this blood vessel here, and this is as if you're looking at yourself, this blood vessel here is too big,
Yeah.
it's too windy,
Yeah.
and it has this area that looks almost like a cloud attached to it. But when you look at it on the side view, it becomes actually even easier to make out. This is your vertebral artery, the basilar artery, and this is your left posterior cerebral artery
Yeah.
that supplies your vision center
Okay.
in that left side of your brain.
Yeah.
And what you see here is almost like a cobweb. And it's complicated. And it's really, really kind of windy, and it's got a lot of stuff going on. And this is the actual AVM.
Yeah.
And so for yours, this was really meant as something that had to be treated as a preoperative embolization
Yeah.
to set it up so that we could remove it with an operation.
So that it wouldn't be a catastrophic bleed or
Yeah,
that type of thing.
that's right.
Then after the embolization, then obviously I went on to have surgery quite soon after to remove it.
Yeah.
Do you have any images of my brain
Yeah.
with it gone?
Sure. So let's show you that.
Yeah.
And so the first thing to show you is this angiogram here is done after your surgery was done,
Yeah.
and there's no longer that tangle of blood vessels
Yeah.
that we see.
No big pocket of
No, that it's been completely removed. So that's
Right.
good, and that's
Yeah.
number one. Years down the road, this is now your MRI in 2010, and this was done after your operation, years later, where we can now see that there's space.
Yeah.
And this is actually brain damage that is due to the operation to remove the AVM, and then you're left with an area of brain that is no longer working.
Right.
And so this is directly reflecting the problems that you've had with your vision. And that was part of what was expected given the treatment that had to be done.
Yeah.
And Dr. Heron leaves me with this lasting impression.
And so I'm glad and proud actually to see that you're doing as well as you are.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a strange thing too, because a lot of years have passed,
Yeah.
and I get to see you and you're all grown up now. And you look in a mirror and you say, okay, well, I'm more grown up than I was before. And in a way, it's a little bit of a gut check and a way of reflecting back and looking at your treatment.
Yeah.
And I think everybody who is reasonable and caring and conscientious will step back and say, would we have done things differently? And looking at what we did for you and how it was done, I don't think that there's anything there I would change.
Yeah.
And I'm glad
Yeah.
because obviously you're cured,
Yeah.
right? And you're able to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Yeah.
I can be very, very honest about that. It's really nice to see it. And I'm just very happy that you're doing as well as you are.
I learned that the things that happened to me were supposed to happen. And although he has certain feelings about them, I'm happy that I can kind of move forward and know that, things weren't a mistake. We wanted them to happen. And ultimately they're what helped me go on to have recovery and have be able to say that, yeah, the AVM's gone. To hear his confidence and his assurance, and also just that he's happy to see where I am, felt good and really cool.
After the break on my 10-year-old brain, I reconnect with the man who helped me understand my brain injury. I'm Shelby Travers, and this is my 10-year-old brain. Being in Vancouver on this journey, I'm feeling so many things, and I need a peaceful place to reflect. I visit this pond that was a sanctuary during my time of sickness and struggle.
I'm feeling a lot of different things. I think overwhelmed is definitely a feeling. I think just even being in the environments and the elements of where so much trauma and recovery happened for me is just bringing in a lot of different emotions: sadness, happiness, relief, anxiety. It's a lot. I'm going to see Dr. Bill Hamilton, or as I just know him, Bill. He is the pediatric neuropsychologist that I met 9 years ago, and I haven't seen him since then. Franny, come on. Yeah. I think it'll be really cool to see Bill. he was such an integral part in just kind of believing in me and wanting to see the best for me. So I'm just really anxious that I hope he's happy with me with my progress, but I'm looking forward to hopefully learning some more things about myself.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hi, good. How
Nice
are
to see you.
You too.
You look awesome.
Oh my
it's really
God,
neat reconnecting
thank you.
with you.
And this is Frances.
All right. Hey, Francis. You made the
Yeah.
flight.
Yeah, she's pretty dirty, so I'm sorry. But do you want to go take a seat?
Yeah.
Oh
Good to
my
see you. Welcome to the left coast.
Yeah, I know.
So Shelby, is this sort of surreal to get together?
It's super surreal. Yeah, there's lots of different emotions that are going through, whether it be happiness, sadness, maybe a little bit of fear. But I think it's just, yeah, like surreal is the perfect way to describe it. Like, do you remember like my case kind of coming into you?
So yes, I do.
Yeah.
I remember you because of your personality
Yeah.
and your feistiness.
Yeah.
And when you came in, how I remembered you anyways was this kind of high octane, let's go kind of girl that was pretty high achieving, you know, kind of a BA student before that. Probably in my imagination, I thought, oh, she must have been pretty verbal, pretty go, go, go. And then this happened and it was kind of like, you hit a wall.
Yeah.
And when I met you, I saw the feistiness, I saw the anger, I think, and I saw the sadness.
Yeah.
And I think it affected me
Yeah.
because I felt for you, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw that in you and then I was testing you, you were very tired, but feisty. And I don't always see that where the kids push through.
Yeah.
You kept doing things, but I
Yeah.
could tell you were tired, but you kept doing things. And I thought, this girl, that characteristic of her is going to serve her well.
Yeah.
Because she's going to have to push through a few things now.
Well,
Things are different.
I think like a lot of that just came from not really accepting things.
Right.
And so if I kind of saw defeat and just accepted defeat and being like, you know what, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore, then that's acknowledging it and accepting the fact that I'm different than what I was, you know,
Right.
10 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it was in my process, in my recovery.
Sure.
And that was something that was really hard for me to, you know, go through and to really kind of just accept who I was now.
I think what I get to do for a living is just a gift. I'm a pediatric neuropsychologist by trade.
Right.
And so my business is to come alongside kids who have had any kind of neurological issue.
Yeah.
And where the neurologists and neurosurgeons are helping you with the physical aspects of that,
Yeah.
I come along and assess the so what of that. What does that mean for life? What did that
Right.
mean for you as far as your fatigue, your vision,
Right.
what you could do reading,
Yeah.
writing,
Yeah.
mood, and then sort of have a plan of, hey, Shelby, this is how you're doing. Here's your strengths.
Yeah.
Here's what's fabulous about you that AVM didn't steal from you.
Right.
This is what's awesome.
Right.
And here's some of the issues now we're seeing that probably but for the AVM we never would have seen.
Right. Exactly.
But now what do we do about that? At school?
Yeah.
What do you need to do? Do you need support, you know, mood-wise, community-wise, all that sort
So
of
you're
stuff?
kind of like building, obviously, like that piece between like injury, trauma, neurological function, and then what that really means in the
Yeah.
world. I remember the test like it was the
So
back
you
of my
remember
hand.
that?
Oh yeah, so much.
So I actually have your report right here.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? From the archives.
Oh my God.
There we go. So I saw you back in 2009 in the summer. And so I did give you IQ testing. I gave
Yeah.
you the gold standard at the time. The thing that came out was how your processing speed was going to be slow with pencil paper output, but that's a visual thing and a fatigue thing. The thing that I loved was that your language system seemed largely unscathed, except for some problems with some word finding and calling some things other words that were similar,
Yeah.
right? But that was fabulous.
Yeah.
And then your verbal memory was
Yeah.
fabulous. Seeing some of the things I was concerned about, do you want me to address that?
Yeah.
I think it was just the whole thing of the visual, which is, you know, the visual processing deficits.
Yeah.
You had some problems with your right hand fine motor. The other big thing was your fatigue,
Yeah.
just cognitive fatigue that turned into physical fatigue after
Yeah.
about an hour. And then I saw depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, hey, as we're all adjusting to something new, it's normal to feel sad, but yours had gone beyond the adjustment
Yeah.
period and you were in a kind of a full-blown sort of depressive episode.
Definitely, because like you know, from the point when I was diagnosed with the AVM to then Like that was
Yeah.
covering from depression and anxiety of
Yeah.
why am I even trying to live when I'm being told I might not live? You know, what's kind of the whole point of that? And then to then after where it's like, okay, well, now how am I coping with this? Because now what am I living for? You know, and kind of going through those whole things, I think was really where
Big
the
questions.
depression came from. Yeah, a lot for a 14, 15-year-old.
Huge, big questions.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
probably one of the things I've been wondering about how you're doing is that last piece, you know,
Yeah.
is with the sadness. And so how's that going?
I don't think I'm very sad. I think I have those sad moments. And I think if I were, when I really dig deep into it, I think that I'm definitely someone who covers things up, pretends things are okay. But I think that I'm so much further than I was.
Yeah.
Things that I'm still really struggling with today, I find are fatigue.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously my vision, but I feel like I kind of accept that.
Sure.
So my fatigue, processing of information,
Yeah.
and that's especially related to my fatigue. And, you know, how to kind of live in this world as an adult and explain to people
Yeah.
what's going through. When I say I'm tired, what does that really mean? How do you?
I know. It's hard because what it is with brain injury, anything that's brain injury related, is that, you know, the sutures will heal, the bruising will go away, whatever it was that we had. And then we look at you and we go, you look fabulous. And so we would have no idea what's going on cognitively. We would
Yeah.
have no idea what kind of quicksand you may be walking through because you're smiling.
Yeah. And most people get it when they see it happen to me.
Yeah.
Unless they see it happen to me, they'll just hear words coming and they're like, yeah. Until they see me when I have, exerted myself for 3 hours or longer than that. And I push myself and I'm just broken. And that's kind of how I generally explain it to people now. I say, like, I break. My brain's broken. I won't be able to really, you'll speak to me, but it won't go through me. And you could say the happiest thing, but my mood, I will, for some reason, cry at it, or I will some reason get really angry at it. I won't know why,
Yeah.
but it's just that's the way my brain's choosing to react. And I really try and explain to people that has no reflection on them.
Where I see people that have an AVM or have anything neurological that's pretty life-altering, suddenly you're coming out of different starting blocks.
Yeah.
And so a great question is, how can I be content?
Yeah.
How can I have meaning
Yeah.
in the midst of this?
Yeah.
And you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like you made a decision.
Nothing by choice.
It was
yeah.
nothing by choice.
Yeah.
This was an anomaly
Yeah.
of how your arteries formed. It wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
But I think as people get on and it's almost like you've got to go through the grieving process of a death,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
totally. You have to grieve kind of who you were,
Yeah.
and now figure out who you are now. So we talked over the phone. Seeing me in person, is this kind of what you expected?
I love hearing some of the progress that you've made, Shelby.
Yeah.
And you're pushing forward. I see some real maturity in you.
Thank
and I think
you.
you're kind of finding yourself
Yeah.
and learning as you go, right?
Yeah.
And but I love the fact that you haven't keeled over and sort of turtled and said, and become really self-absorbed in that sense. But it's kind of, even though, hey, we can all be self-absorbed, right?
Yeah.
But you're moving on. You're a survivor. You're an overcomer. And I'm not surprised by that.
Thank you. It's really amazing for me to be able to touch base with you, and like I really want you to know you were a very big part in me kind of figuring out my new brain
Right.
and kind of making me feel like it was okay. And I appreciate you still even now telling me like it's okay. And yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I just gotta keep on keeping on.
Yeah. For me to be able to see where you're at today, you don't know how, trying to think what the word would be, but how satisfying it is, not for my sake, but for your sake, to see somebody that's overcome and continued on and done well.
Yeah.
And I think you have been successful in doing something that I just would want to encourage you to do is you don't believe the lies that this is anything that your fault or that you're deficient or that there's something lacking here and that you're not going to have this fabulous life.
Yeah.
Don't be defined by your circumstances.
Seeing Bill was a lot. I think more than I even expected it to be. Like, he understands me in such a way that so many people can't understand me. And so to see that person and to see such a big piece of my life, like, again, one-on-one in such a intense way, was a lot. I feel like what Bill did was reaffirm I need to give myself a break and that things probably won't change. I think that's something I definitely kind of got confirmed today, is that things aren't gonna change. They probably won't get quote unquote better, but that they don't need to get better. I think that's really what I took, is that I need to relax on myself, and that I'm literally the exact same girl as I was 9 years ago.
When we come back on My 10-Year-Old Brain, I speak with my role model. I'm Shelby Travers, and this is My 10-Year-Old Brain.
Good girl, forward.
While I'm in Vancouver, there's one more person I want to connect with.
Well, I'm going to meet Heather Sebastian. Heather was a big part in my process of acceptance. And so her and I met when I was attending Langley Fine Arts School. She worked as a guidance counselor for students with disabilities. But Heather and I share something unique in common in that we both have brain injuries. They affect different parts of our brain. Hers was traumatic versus mine acquired. But she was the first person I met who had a brain injury, and that was big for me and my family when I was trying to figure out what that really meant for my life.
Hey!
Hi!
Oh my God, you're all grown up.
I know.
Look at you! Holy cow!
I know. It's so nice to see you. Oh my God. Oh.
Wow, hello!
Hi.
Welcome back!
Yeah, I know. It's been so many years. This is crazy. This is Frances. She's my guide dog.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up getting one of
You
those.
got a dog and everything.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm actually okay with who I am now. I'm not trying to hide it anymore.
In Heather's apartment, I start by asking if she remembers when we first met.
I had been given dire warnings about this complex student who was coming, and did I feel able to handle it?
Yeah.
And I was sort of excited because there's one like me coming, kind of.
Yeah. So we share a similar connection with a brain injury. Do you mind talking a little bit about your brain injury?
No, of course not. So I was a passenger in a car. My husband and I were tandem driving, and he hit some gravel and didn't work out well. We went over the side of the mountain, I guess. And then I went flying out a back window and landed on some rocks.
Yeah.
So got a bit of a smash. But nobody said anything about brain injury to us because I was sort of speaking, and my husband kept saying, she's not making any sense. She doesn't know who I am.
Yeah.
She doesn't know she's a mom.
Yeah.
He kept bringing these kids in and showing me, and I would just say, that's nice, where's my soup? Or, you know, which is pretty disturbing for a husband with 4 young kids.
Yeah.
Similar to my AVM, it took months for Heather's brain injury to be diagnosed.
What are the things that you experience on a daily basis now with your brain injury?
The most frustrating one is the agnosia, where I can't see stuff
Yeah.
that's right there.
Yeah.
So I will put down my keys, for example, turn away, look back where I just put them, and my brain will just show me what's under the keys. Like they'll just disappear.
Yeah, we both have different types of processing issues. Mine is when I hear information,
I can't figure out how to take that information and then relay it back. And yours is the opposite, right?
And that was the magic of the hearing loss.
Right.
Because my hearing loss is moderate to severe, which
Yeah.
with proper augmentation should be fine, but
Yeah.
that's not the whole story.
Yeah.
Because I have nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
Like visual stuff, auditory stuff just goes in and just flies right back out again.
Yeah. I think grieving is a big thing for this type of thing that we deal with. For me, it was big grieving who I was to who I am now. I mean, 14 is a difficult time for anyone.
For sure.
And then having to redefine yourself completely at 14 is a lot too.
No, that's its own set of trauma, because if 14 is 14, 15, 16, those are the years where you're creating yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a rough go.
Would you say that you've grieved your injury? And would you say that you are past that? Or would you say that you are constantly grieving?
It's a process.
Yeah.
It continues to be a
Yeah.
process. Things count, milestones continue in life all the time. There are these moments where I can't do this.
There's like this social standard of how we're supposed to be in society. And frankly, we don't fit that mold.
Nope.
And so sometimes, like, if you were to explain something to someone every single time, you'd have to, deal with the pity face.
Do you hear yourself saying sorry?
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't understand you,
Yeah.
because I have inadequate receptors.
Yeah.
Not because you need to communicate in a way that I can
Yeah.
get.
And isn't that interesting how we have to feel apologetic for our normal instead of people apologizing for just not making sense to us? It's so hard. It's so tough. I can't have a phone the way that my phone reads to me. I can't do that for my brain. I can't get a guide dog for my brain.
Right.
Right? So I can avoid bumping into things through my dog, through a cane, through learning environments, through help from people. I ski now with a sighted guide.
Cool.
I run with a guide. I can do these things that I always loved to do. I found ways. But I can't go on skiing trips because sometimes if they're too far away, because I get too tired. And then I can't listen and process the commands that my guide is giving me to turn left and right. And that will never change.
But
Yeah.
every day after that day, you're kind of on bonus time.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to take you out.
Yeah.
And I have that too.
Yeah.
I was 30 when it happened,
Yeah.
and every single day after that is extra.
True.
So, if it isn't exactly the way it would have looked, okay.
Yes, I am physically a 24-year-old. My brain is 10 though,
In a way, yeah.
because I've only been living with this brain for 10 years.
Yep.
This is now what I know. This is now what I have to deal with. And I've only had 10 years of experience with it. Is this kind of where you could have expected me to be? Because I feel like you always had such high hopes for me. And you kind of saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
I was just discussing this with my daughter's about to become a probation
Yeah.
officer. And what I said to her is, if you can save one, you've earned your salary.
Yeah.
Just one. And I know for sure that you're one of my ones. And that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And so, because as a person with, a limited skill set too, I was very stalled at work. Nobody knew about this part.
Yeah.
I could hide behind the hearing loss as you do behind the vision one when it works. So it's just great to have it work out. And you were recovering way better than I did. Yeah. Like I was just watching you and thinking, ooh, she's gonna be fine.
Show me the beautiful view. After this many years, going through so much since the last time I saw her, it was undescribable. Like, I can't put into words how good it feels to feel normal in being not normal. To understand the pain, to understand the struggle, to understand, like, with her hearing loss, you know, you kind of like hide behind that as like, that's what's going on with you. And that's what I do with my vision.
My 10-year-old brain will continue after the break. I'm Shelby Travers, and this is my 10-year-old brain. My brain injury impacted my sight, but it's all the cognitive struggles that affect my life the most today.
The main thing that sticks out to me is my fatigue. You know, people describe it as like shades start to come over your eyes, like your eyes just get really heavy, and like you can physically notice the person with the brain injury, or in this case me, just completely tuning out. All of a sudden, the information is just not going anywhere. Another side of it is my right side of my body's weaker. So if I'm to grab someone's hands, I can't really grab things with my right hand that well. It gives out pretty easily if I'm holding something for too long. I have something that's called verbal alexia, which basically means even if I were to try my best to read, it still is like each word is like the first time I'd ever be seeing it. My way of communicating was never affected, but my way of understanding communication was affected. So when people talk to me, it takes longer for my brain to process that. It doesn't quite know where to put that information. I definitely wish I could have more self-acceptance in my life. I wish I could, you know, I don't want to say accept my brain injury. I don't want to say like, yeah, it's fine and I'm okay with it. You know, it's fine, just pretend. Because it's not, and I don't think I ever will be okay with it. But I think what I want is to be okay that it's not okay. And I just want to be content. I want to figure out how much I can do. I want to figure out my limitations. And I just want to be okay with it. I don't think I'm ever going to be happy with it. And I don't think I have to be happy with it because, you know, it's not something I asked for. It's not something I wanted. It's something that I know is going to be a struggle every single day. But I'd like to work on having some sort of closure and some sort of way of just being like, you're not weaker because of this.
Traveling to Vancouver gave me some insight into how I can really do this.
Hey, come here. I learned that, I guess in some way, shape, or form, I have an impact on people's lives. The fact that Bill especially remembered who I was, just even when I first called him. Even though we only spent like 2 days together, 9 years ago, is kind of crazy. I learned, you know, that my brain was kind of done healing within 6 months to 2 years. I reaffirmed in my head that how much Heather is such a good person for me because we're able to say that things suck together and get where we're coming from. You know, it's not where, you know, generally in the world you have to pretend that everything's okay and you have to try and act the way that society wants you to play, even though you're breaking inside. And it's just nice to have that person that you can actually like just be real with. And I mean, Dr. Heron, like, he's just one of those doctors who really cares. I think it's really cool to see where they are 10 years later as well. Hearing, you know, from 3 key people, you know, that I need to calm down, that I actually am doing really well, it's definitely, it means a lot. I think it will be one of those steps in towards finally me saying it to myself.
Host, producer, Shelby Travers. Producer, Lisa No. Videographers, Sergio Vera Barahona, Darcy DeToni. Editors, Miriam Bakhtiar, Darcy DeToni. Graphics, Andrew Antonello. Audio post, Daniel Salmon. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Emily Harding. Post-production supervisor, Janice Civitelli. Senior producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director production, Kara Nye. Director programming, Brian Perdue. VP programming and production, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2018, Accessible Media Inc.